Welcome back to the Wild West Crypto Show. I'm Brent.
And I'm Steve.
And yes, it's the Drewless edition. But I'll tell you what, we're not Boless. Bo Polny. How are you doing, man? It's great to see you again.
Hey, Bo.
Wonderful. Nice to see you, both of you. I haven't seen either of you since Vegas. So
man,
that was in October.
I love your sets. You got what's it look like, orchids back there, and then the daisy painting and the wine rack. I mean, that's...
Not a big wine drinker, but I like a little glass every so often.
Oh, yeah.
And my wife takes care of the flowers, and she makes sure the house is well taken care of.
Well, and I tell you what, that's got the Renaissance man look there. You know, our set's kind of got the redneck man look. But anyway, listen, Bo, we've had you on in the past, and for those people that don't know Bo, Bo is kind of a cycles and a trend guy. And so he goes and looks for identified cycles and trends because things tend to replicate themselves, and human nature being what it is, a lot of times fear and greed and all these kinds of things will go into a certain cycle and replicate itself. And in fact, we're going to have some graphics for you today to kind of show you how Bo looks at things. Bo, you're startlingly accurate. And so talk a little bit about the markets overall and what you see coming in the next couple months.
Startlingly accurate, I think, is a little bit pushing it. I do my best, and I've had some incredible calls. It is impossible to nail this market all the time. And I gotta say, especially the stock market, because they pump money into the market like they're lunatics because they want to keep, everything beautiful. It's like the picture behind me. Everything's beautiful. That's the markets. There's never going to be a problem. And that's what they've been promoting. And I did forecast initially an initial market plunge in the month of December into year end last year. And then they printed, I think it was how many billion, 50 billion or 500 billion, whatever it was. It was some enormous amount, a number that you and I can't even imagine. But they pumped it into the market to prevent the actual cycle from fulfilling itself. But that doesn't stop the longer term trend. And the longer term trend is still a down cycle. But specifically, 10 days ago, I was on the Greg Hunter interview, and I basically said that the US stock market's going to tank this month here in February, going to bounce, and then there's an epic, and I say epic, I mean an epic market event coming in April. And so at that time, the markets are on their highs, and no one it's like, oh, it never happened in December. There's never going to be a market crash, like you're saying. But I did draw out a chart, and I've got it right here for you. This is the actual chart. Now, go to my website, Gold 2020 Forecast. There's a little on the right side. It says the Trump cycles. And the Trump cycles, and then maybe like 7th or 8th page down, and it shows. This is a biblical calculation, but basically we've got a 4-2-1 cycle. So basically, Brent, you had said, I'm a cycle analyst, and time seems to replay itself. That's exactly what's happening. Basically, the year 2018, that was the crash of the decade. That's what it was called into December. And I did forecast that crash into year end. It ended on the 24th of December, Christmas Eve. Now we're replaying that cycle again, and April is expected to be the cycle month that represents December of 2018. Are you with me? So December of 2018 was a crash of the decade, and now we're supposed to see another crash in April, and I don't know the magnitude of it, but the lines are pointing to maybe a 30 to 35% plunge. And so far we have confirmation that the plunge in April is coming. And that's with this recent drop of 9% on the equity markets just this past week. This is the chart that I presented in the Greg Hunter interview. See this big circle right here?
Yeah.
Right, the big circle right there. So this was when the markets were on their highs, just as this 4 cycle completed right here at point B. And then this is the time point that we're looking for a plunge into C and then a bounce into D. But basically, the markets are on their highs, and everyone's like, no, there's not going to be a crash. Never happened in December. They're going to keep printing money. It's not going to happen. Cycles tend to win. This was published on early February. Then we go here. This is today's chart. And you can see the drop into letter point C.
Yeah, and Bo, when I said you were startlingly accurate, what I meant by that was, as having been somebody that started in the markets in 1982 as a 24-year-old, startlingly accurate that doesn't mean you're 1,000% right all the time. In the stock market, if you're a 60, 70, 80% right all the time, you're starting
pretty good. Yeah.
But the thing that a lot of people have to realize is exactly what you said. And I had a couple of people ask me after our show in December, what do you think? Because Bo predicted something and it didn't happen. And the point that I made was just what you made is if the Fed is going to pump a bunch of money in it, you can keep a dead cat alive for a while and have the dead cat fall.
Right. So what that postponed the cycle, but didn't break the longer term trend.
No.
And the longer term trend still points to a massive event that's expected here in April. So this 10% that we've seen so far is a preliminary or a prelude to what is coming in April.
And you can, and I've done it. In fact, in 2004, I told all my customers at the time that I was getting out of the business. I said the Dow's going to 6,500. It's like, I think 11.2 or something like that. They thought I was crazy. I said it'll happen in 2 years. I was totally wrong. It took 4, but it went to 64.75, so I missed it by 25 points. Right. How did I get that number? I got that number by looking at charts that go all the way back into the early 1900s. Okay, and so Bo's right. You always have kind of the regression to the mean, and that's where those charts and that's where those trends always come back and kind of recycle themselves. They can be drawn out a little bit or shortened a little bit, but they're generally, those cycles are pretty.
It's almost like the seasons of the year in a way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It could be a cold winter or not, but they're going to be a winter.
Right. And that's the thing is you cannot change the fact that winter's coming or spring's coming. Okay. And so just like this spring is going to be pretty epic for our world because of the events that are going to transpire here in April. So, and then this Trump cycle, which I laid out, goes back to the actual day of the election that he got elected. So the cycle itself ends in April. So think of April, the end of April and the beginning of May as literally a time point of like Trump getting elected again. So something dramatic starts at the end of April as May begins. So as this cycle ends, a dramatic new time point begins in our world. So what's going to cause the events of April? What are the events of April going to be? I truly don't know. But I tell you that the cycle so far, as of this moment in time, 26th of February, it has fulfilled itself so far on this 10% or 9% correction. So the first drop into our cycle point that we have here of letter C, that is already confirming of what we expect, and I expect personally to happen in the month of April.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here because we've hit our first 8 minutes. We've got you for the next segment. And so the thing that we're going to do is we're going to come back and prognosticate what that might be that happens in April.
What's going to happen
and
next.
What's going to happen next with Bo on the Wild West Crypto Show in 2 minutes. Welcome back to the Wild West Crypto Show. I'm Brent.
And I'm Steve.
And it's the Drewless edition. Drew's a little under the weather, but I'll tell you what, speaking of the weather, we got the weatherman, the financial weatherman here, Polny. Bo, we were talking about the cycles. We talked about that the Trump cycles has got something big coming up in April. So now let's sit down and go, I think there was a song back in the 90s, CNC Music Factory, just to show you know where a cowboy hat I got sold. CNC Music Factory had a song that said, things that make you go, So let's go, and just, what happens in April? Is there a big debate? Is there is that a time period that somebody may have enough delegates to know who the Democratic candidate is? What might you think would be that catalyst?
Well, no one saw, or for example, like this initial 9% drop on the markets, right? What is it directly related to? The virus out of China, right? And so no one foresaw that event would cause the initial markets to drop. There is another event coming in April, kind of like we've seen with a virus out of China. Whatever event is coming in April is going to have to be bigger than the event even that we've seen so far in China. So it's going to be large, going to be dramatic, and I don't know what it could or might be, but I can tell you something interesting about the month of April. And this goes to Bible and prophecy, okay? Think about this. There's an incredible time point that happened, was it 4,000 years ago, the time of Moses and Pharaoh.
Okay.
What did Moses say to Pharaoh? Let
My people go.
That's right. The
I
monetary
like that
system.
my stick's more powerful than yours, and through the
That's
stick,
right.
snake
And he
ain't living.
kept repeating it, and he kept repeating it. Let my people go.
Right.
What is our world? Our world is in bondage right now via this monetary system. Okay. Anybody who has a credit card, or anybody who has a utility bill, or any kind of anything related, you have to go to work each day to take care of your debts. Okay. That's bondage. All right. When the central government can print money to infinity, that gives them this immense power to basically create this debt that really could be as big as you want it to be, but basically you enslave humanity with it. And so let my people go is an interesting time point and a comment phrase, I guess, for the month of April, because after Passover, what was the point of Passover? They painted blood on the doors, and after Passover, Pharaoh let the people go. So is this going to mirror that time point in history? I don't know, but I tell you, gold is going to be an epic, precious metal beginning this year. And I tell you that there's going to be a very large event in the equity markets and our financial market this year. And it seems to be pointing to the month of April where something big could potentially happen. So I don't know, but I tell you something big is coming. I find it fascinating that it all revolves around Passover and Easter. So I don't know, but I'm watching really closely and I'm prepared. And I hope all that have listened to what I say, to what you guys say about preparing with cryptocurrencies, preparing with gold and silver, having some food and water and faith, I hope everybody's listened because, things happen quickly sometimes.
Oh yeah, well, and we got lead here in South Texas. But let me also make one point. We talked about it earlier in the show. I guess it was earlier in the show. We taped these, so I don't know exactly which segment we put in. But they have incinerated $600 million of Chinese fiat to make sure that the virus went up with the currency in smoke.
Yeah. But
well, that makes them again, that's another reason for them, because the whole system slowly and eventually is going to turn to the beast system, which is basically a digital system of money, right? And so their agenda is to get rid of paper. Well, what better way of getting rid of paper is basically to taint it.
Right.
Right. And so that doesn't may not happen like tonight or this year yet, but I do tell you that there's a larger gold cycle that points to the end of September being an incredible shifting time point. So beginning in October, gold, silver, cryptocurrencies began a bull market like you've never seen before. So the question is, what happens then to cause that?
Yes. Well, and you know what? I mean, the Chinese are huge on mining.
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin and stuff. So, they obviously have some expertise in the digital side of things. So what if all of a sudden China just burns all their money and goes digital? That would make the world kind of have to sit up and take notice. And who knows if that happened, if I'm in the stock market up to my eyeballs, I'd start to have a second thought about it.
One other thing I wanted to add is that you need to pay attention to what's been going on. The stock market dropped yesterday, it was at 800 points, and the day before that. So it's dropped. But what also happened? You must pay attention to this. The US dollar fell with the stock market. This is unheard of, okay? So the dollar's always been a safe haven. Everyone always been saying, well, when the stock market crashes, buy the dollar. That's not been happening. Okay, so you must pay attention to what's going on.
Yeah.
The paper system is burning. So not only, like you were talking exactly, not only about the Chinese currency being burnt, you have to understand this is going to be a monetary event where the dollar gets whacked also, okay? So this is not just going to be the stock market event. So this year is going to be a pivotal time point in our world where paper becomes a problem. And not just for viruses on it, but I'm talking just the paper system becomes a problem. And that's why the new monetary system will rise. And what is a new monetary system? Well, it's God's money, gold and silver, and this digital currency of cryptocurrencies.
Well, let me tell you something, Bo. Last week on Cryptocurrency Wire, Jonathan Kime, one of the things that we talked about was the fact that there was a new safe haven type of coin that was going to translate directly into the US dollar. And it was overseas, even though they were using the dollar as its marker. So it's an exciting time. It's going to be real interesting. And I have a feeling, Bo, we'll have you on a few more times between now and April. April 4th, we have the Texas, the Bitcoin Ben World Record Texas meetup. So if you and your wife can get out this way, you need to come to that.
Don't miss
it'll be
that.
a blast.
That's going to be amazing.
Yeah, so I actually have booked the whole airline already and hotel already. I've got that reserved.
Wonderful. All right,
And so just a matter of deciding if I'm going to drive or fly based on what's going on in the world. But I do tell you that that'll be right at that time point of the conference is when the markets turn.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
So, folks,
The stock markets turn.
if you don't already have your tickets, get it, because not only can you meet Steve and I and Drew, you can meet somebody really important. You can meet Bo.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thank you so much, Bo. Bo knows.
Good to be with you, bro.
Enjoyed it. And we'll be back on the Wild West Crypto Show.
God bless you. Thanks.
God bless you. Thank you, Bo.